Bastet and Cats. Gods as animals and sacred animals. As everybody knows, in ancient Egyptian religion, gods and goddesses could take the form of animals. That doesn't mean they believed the gods actually had the form of animals. Rather, it's just one form they could take. Hathor could be a cow, Horus could be a falcon, Thoth, god of wisdom, could be a baboon, or alternatively, he could be an ibis, a type of bird. You can see the two forms of Thoth on the right-hand side of the PowerPoint. As well as gods being represented as animals, some animals were also held to be sacred in Egypt, and after they died, they might be mummified, like people. The best example of that is the Apis bull, who lived in Memphis. After death, the Apis bull was mourned and mummified, and another one was chosen. Bastet. One Egyptian goddess had the form of a cat. This was Bastet, whom the Greeks sometimes called Bastis. You can see two images of her here on the right. They made statues of her, sometimes out of the stone alabaster. One theory is that the word alabaster actually incorporates her name, so it means something like stone of Bastet. As we'll see, festivals at Bastet were occasions for drunken orgies, which may well reflect the character of the goddess. Bastet is sometimes associated with another goddess, Sekhmet, whose animal form was the fierce lion. She was mother of another feline deity, Mahes or Mios, who was a lion god. Bastet and Artemis. The Greeks identified many Egyptian gods with their own gods, and they identified Bastet with Artemis, the sister of Apollo. Artemis, as you probably know, was a virgin goddess, chaste and fair, as they called her. She never had sex, never had children. In this respect, she seems to have been unlike Bastet. Usually, when the Greeks identified one of their deities with an Egyptian one, it was because they had something in common. So why did they identify Artemis with Bastet? We don't know. It may be partly to do with the fact that, like Artemis, Bastet had a brother. It seems that her brother was Horus, who was generally identified with Apollo by the Greeks. So the Greeks may have made Bastet Apollo's sister, even though Artemis was a different sort of goddess. It may also be because Bastet was connected with health, particularly women's health. Like Artemis, this is symbolized by her shooting arrows. Bastis. Bastis was worshipped in various places in Egypt, particularly in one town in northeast Egypt called Bubastis. This is the same name as the Greek name of the goddess, you'll note. Bubastis seems to mean house of Bastet, i.e. it's the Egyptian Pur Bastet. It was the capital of Egypt for a while, which may have helped make the goddess important in the region. Bubastis is ruined now. The ruins can be seen near the huge modern town of Zagazig, and you can see that on the PowerPoint to the lower right. 5. Mummified cats. When they were excavating the site of Bubastis in the 19th century, archaeologists discovered hundreds of thousands of mummified cats. They found so many that they were amazingly transported to Europe and in many cases used as fertilizer. Now you'd think that these were the remains of sacred cats which had been buried at Bubastis and mummified. Actually, the truth is a bit grimmer. It may be that the people worshipping Bastis at Bubastis would make an offering of a mummified cat, and to supply the demand, the priests at Bubastis may actually have killed them, probably strangling them or drowning them. Now, you might think that would be impossible because cats were revered in Egypt. There's a story from a Greek writer about how a Roman caused a riot in Egypt by accidentally killing a cat. And Herodotus tells us how when a house burned down in Egypt, people would prioritize saving the cats. But maybe killing them in a religious context was considered okay. 6. The pilgrimage to Bastis. In the Greek period, Bastis was an incredibly popular place. Herodotus, writing in 430 BC, describes how people went there from all over Egypt to celebrate the festival. They traveled by river and called in at towns on the way. He says there were 700,000 of them, an amazing number even today. Herodotus describes an orgiastic celebration with alcohol, music, and ritual obscenity. I've put the Herodotus's whole description of the pilgrimage to Bastis on the right-hand side of the PowerPoint, so you can read it. That's the only evidence we have for this. Now, this isn't just a Greek view. The orgiastic side of it. We have an Egyptian text from the same period, more or less, which describes a celebration of Bastet in similar terms, also with alcohol and sex. The best way of interpreting this, probably, when it seems a bit like a sort of great party, but we could also perhaps say that this was a celebration of human sexuality and fertility, and this is somehow connected, deeply connected with the goddess. 7. Bastet and cats. If Bastet was a goddess of sexuality and fertility, can we link this up with cats? Well, maybe we can. For Greek authors, cats, at least tomcats, had a reputation for lust. Herodotus talks a lot about Egyptian animals in his account of Egypt and tells us a little about the sex life of cats. In particular, he says that female cats in Egypt, after they'd given birth to kittens, tended to refuse sex with the tomcats. So sex-mad tomcats would actually get rid of the kittens so that the female cats would want to have sex again. Another writer, Plutarch, writing in the Roman period, also says that cats procreate a lot. He actually says that they had so many kittens over a period of time, first 1, then 2, and so on up to 7, that the number amounted to 28, which was exactly the same number of days as the lunar cycle, the moon being, of course, linked to women's fertility. He also says, incidentally, that the pupils of cats' eyes were like the moon, expanding and contracting as the moon waxes and wanes. So the fertile, sexually active cat might have been a good symbol for Bastet, the goddess of sex and fertility.